Hey Greg, how you doing, man?
Awesome, Dominic. How are you, buddy? Is
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm antibiotically challenged.
that politically correct?
I don't know, and I don't care.
I am bone structurally challenged still.
Antibiotically challenged. Yeah, well, I mean, you know the story, but those of you who are out there don't know the story. Like a week ago, I had to have a tooth pulled, and there was an abscess up there that I had no idea about, and it's been dripping bacteria into my body. So like every in 2024, like every 6 weeks or so, I would get this like bad fever and aches and pains, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. So I finally scheduled this. Um, well, all my blood tests and my P tests weren't showing anything, even the bacteria. So I scheduled the tooth extraction that I had from mid last year or whatever, early last year. And the guy's like, "You should have had this out a long time ago, Dominic." And I'm like, "Why?" He says, "You got an abscess this side." Yeah, this side. You have an abscess. I'm like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "Bacteria. It's not good." I'm like, "What does that mean?" He's like, he says it's a slow drip into your system. So I'm like, "Is that why I've been having these episodes of fever and aches and pains?" He's like, "Yep, that'll do it." So I'm on an antibiotic for one more day, and it has not been nice to me. Anyway, our topic today is self-sabotage. I kind of feel like that's a I
A segue.
self-sabotage myself with this tooth.
Well, you're on the mend. One more day.
I know.
No more intravenous slow drip of bacteria into your body.
I know. I mean, I think that for me, I do a lot of things healthy, and then I have no idea that this thing is self sabotaging me or sabotaging my whole entire system
Yeah.
until all hell breaks loose, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the strict sense, right? That would be self sabotage. That's your body sabotaging itself.
It's my body saying, "Wake up! There's something wrong."
Yep. Well, at least you got the memo.
I got the memo, a big time. So self sabotage is a great topic. You're there and back in you're in Wisconsin in Appleton, right?
Madison,
Madison, Mad City.
Mad
You
City,
got your what did I call it today? A leg coffin.
leg coffin.
Your leg coffin.
This bad boy.
Yeah,
At least I got flexibility. Yeah, I'm still pinned. My stubbornness. I don't know if it's stubbornness. I don't know. Call it whatever. But been pushing myself every week just a little bit more. I decided this week I would do 20 minutes exercise every day. So I've been following through on that, and knee push-ups, and I got this little gym thing in my basement where I can do like dips and pull-ups, and so I've been doing abs. And when I'm really feeling ambitious, I'll put on my winter coat, gloves, and I'll go crush around the block for 20 minutes. So it feels good though. I mean, it'd be so easy for me, I think, to sort of just let myself go in this position. And I know at other times in my life, I would have completely self-sabotaged myself and just sort of gone into that screw it phase of I'm not going to do anything and I don't care, and I have such a good excuse to not do it right now because my leg is broken. And so it's nice to be fighting that entropy, um, of where my brain might take me.
I think
So
it's a pretty normal occurrence for people when, like, it certainly has is true for me. So something happens. I get sick, or I had back surgery a couple times. A lot of people know about that. Um, and then just say, "Screw it! I'm not doing anything healthy."
yeah,
But it's good that you're doing it. That's great.
yeah. Well, it's an easy justification, right? I think anyone would be able to say back to me, "Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, of course. Of course you gained 20 pounds. Yeah, your leg is broken. You know, the world would
Yeah.
validate it easily for me, but my internal validation, I guess I've been through enough things in my life to know that ultimately it's still an excuse, regardless of where I'm at. Now, I didn't do this like the first few weeks after my surgery, and I was going through all the stuff with my dad passing away and all that. So I gave myself, some space to deal with it emotionally, and I needed some physical reprieve. But yeah, it's nice. And I had a moment of self-sabotage the other day. So my daughter was with me this last several days, and we've been working on her sleep thing, to get her to go to bed by herself and sleep, and that's been a whole ordeal. But anyway, so the other morning, I'm sleeping, and then I hear the knock at the door. Daddy, daddy, daddy. And my dad brain kicks in. My instincts like, oh. And so I like throw my leg out of bed, slam it on the floor like I'm going to go run to her. And I'm like, oh, shit, my leg. That's right. It's broken. So I was wondering what would happen if I had to like run and like rescue my daughter from the fire or something in her room. And I'm like, yep, not there yet. Can't do it. So luckily, I don't think I did any damage.
Wow.
It's a journey, man.
I can't even imagine what it's like to be on a crutch. I've never had to have that happen.
Really?
Never. I mean, I was when I had my back surgery, I had one of those. It wasn't crutches. It was one of those
Walkers.
Walkers. Yeah. And I didn't use it that often. I hobbled to the bathroom and hobbled back to the couch. That was basically it. So
Yeah.
But still, that was not fun, and I can relate to what you're going through. So anyway,
I was just gonna say we're all humans in this little meat suit that has the ability to break itself in many ways.
We're in a meat suit. That's good. I like that. A meat suit. It's almost as bad as a leg coffin. Excuse me. Antibiotics, man. Don't ever get on antibiotics. I mean, unless you definitely have to, because I got the itches, I got the hoarse throat, I had the headaches, but thankfully those are gone. But anyway, so self-sabotage. I did a chat GPT just to see, and the title of it, the prompt was, what are the effects of self-sabotage? And it came back with the effects of self-sabotage, a barrier to personal and professional growth. And, I mean, just thinking out loud, we can all kind of like get what self-sabotage is really about. I mean, we trip ourselves up, we say we want something, and then we do something to sabotage that, and then it doesn't happen. And I mean, they're like every area of life, and then it continues. And then, I've always wondered why I would continue to sabotage myself. And the interesting thing is that I could never come up with a reason, or at least a good one. Like, I don't know why. What am I doing? What's the point? And anyway, so I'm just going to read the first paragraph here, the abstract it says, so that we can kind of set the tone for the call. We're going to be on for about another 45 minutes. It says self-sabotage is a pervasive psychological phenomena where individuals consciously or unconsciously engage in behaviors that hinder their own success and well-being. It often stems from deeply ingrained fears, limiting beliefs, and unresolved emotions. I mean, that's like the clinical whatever. There's a couple of references at the bottom by two guys or two people that I don't know who they are. B Brown and a guy named DeVries. So anyway, but I think that summarizes basically where we're at with this thing. So
I wonder,
yeah,
based,
what are your thoughts?
based on that, because I was actually thinking this before you even read all that, and we didn't discuss this beforehand, so I didn't know you were going to read that. What would conscious self-sabotage look like? I can understand unconscious self-sabotage, but I wonder what conscious self-sabotage would look like.
It sounds worse, doesn't it?
It sounds worse. Yeah. Like I have this image of me just like with my leg right now, just like kicking a wall. Like, that seems really dumb.
Yeah. Like when I was I remember what first popped into my mind when you said kick the wall. I was going through my teenage days and my hair wouldn't lay right. So I punched the wall and my hand was bleeding. My dad comes running down the stairs. What the hell did you do? And he grabs my hand. He's like, did you? And he looked at the wall. He just shook his head and walked out.
But I think it's an interesting example, right? Like even in that moment in your deep, and I've had moments like that. Do you think it was conscious? Do you think you were consciously like, I'm going to sabotage myself, or was it the unresolved emotions, perhaps, aspect of what that thing was saying? So then it unconsciously manifests in a behavior that I don't think I would ever consciously do to myself. I don't know. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just trying to challenge it. I'm just trying to like think of a scenario where I would consciously self-sabotage.
Well, I think that probably was an unconscious thing. A fit of anger and being emotionally unintelligent as a teenager that I was. But I think, like, for example, drinking and smoking is a pretty common thing. Excuse me. That I have done certainly in the past, where I have had, commitments that I wasn't going to drink or smoke, and then here I am in my weak moment, and then I light up a cigarette or I have a drink and try to hide it, like that. That's very consciously breaking, and then the consequences of that are, the fallout is, felt like shit for doing it, felt weaker, felt more insecure.
That's a good example. I think it's a really good example of conscious self-sabotage.
I mean, it's like stealing from work.
Mm-hmm.
Taking something that's not mine, or stealing at all.
Mm-hmm.
Very a conscious choice or decision to do something that would intentionally fuck up my life.
Yeah.
So
in those two examples, there seems to be like an element of secrecy, an element of I can get away with it, an element of if people don't know, it's okay. I know I've lived in that world so much in my life of like, if I can just pretend like nobody else will ever know, maybe it's okay. So yeah, I think those are really good examples. I was just trying to think of it. So thank you for illuminating. I think those are good.
Yeah. And, I think that's just an example for me. I'm sure that, if we had people, I'm looking for comments over here on the Facebook feed. There's just one like so far. And I think that if people, we should ask people, put it in the comments of things that, that you have done, not you, Greg, but you people who are watching or will listen later, that where you have self-sabotaged yourself. Let's talk about the consequences, because I think that that's really where, if we are being or attempting to be conscious and aware of our actions, that what we really need to keep in mind are the consequences of what really happens when we do this self-sabotage business, and that, I think, in my experience, has definitely slowed me down, knowing what those consequences are. There's always going to be a consequence, no matter what action that we take, whether it's, for a better word, positive or negative. A payoff or a ripoff. Um, in my example, like I said, I felt weaker, emotionally weaker. I felt slippery. I felt, like I said, insecure, more insecure, like I had just sabotaged. I set myself up to feel less, like in terms of my mental well-being. I lowered myself. And so then it's like, okay, it's kind of like, climbing the ladder. So now I went back 5 steps and I got to go back those 5 steps. And then
Mhm.
you get where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's like I know exactly that feeling of, it's just sort of like shooting myself in the foot. It's killing my momentum. It's yeah, hurting myself to progress on the path that I know is best for me. And then I think the real challenge, at least in my experience of self-sabotaging myself, is then getting out of it. Like, because the more, like, if I do it, if I can justify it in my own mind once, what's going to stop me from justifying it again and again and again and again? And then I can get in this rut of, like, it becomes a pattern, it becomes an addiction, it becomes whatever you want to call it. And it becomes that much more difficult to pull myself out of it. And I lose trust in myself. I lose self-worth. I lose value. I want to hide from people because I don't feel good. So then it hurts my relationships. There's a lot of things that go with it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a key word, hide, because that's, we always talk, oh yeah, well, we need or want to be authentic and real with people. And then when we do this whole sabotage thing, even though in the moment it feels like we're getting away with it, it's still, the consequences are still there. So in order for us to justify feeling okay that we did it, it's not that big of a deal, well, we end up, hiding or separating ourselves from other people, especially those who are close to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's really the big thing, is that it creates a separateness, that now we are, isolated in our own little world. And and as it happens, when we let ourselves slide, and when it happens over and over and over, we become so callous to it that we wonder why, we're having all these, feelings of insecurity. We're not making progress in our life. And then we forget that we're like, self-sabotaging is that self-sabotaging is the root cause of the problem. And then I think, from what I've experienced, I go so unconscious about it. I forget about it. And then it's just the snowball effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
my experience of myself is that I live at the level at which I speak, and I live at the level at which I think. So if I could keep say there was a what do they call that thing, like when the subtitles, right? So like, if I could keep track of all the subtitles of the thoughts that go through my head and I could observe them, that would be so amazing, because I feel like I would be able to see at what level am I thinking, and then I would probably be able to see, oh yeah, my life is about at that place. And when I self-sabotage, the thoughts that go inward about myself to myself, they will be destructive. They will be hurtful. And so it's like that, and then that becomes my reality. That becomes the way that I think. That becomes the way that I see it. That becomes my lens and how I view the world. And I think the inverse of self-sabotage, and I think we've talked about this before, is like self-love, which would then, that shapes the lens in a different way. That shapes the conversation in my head. That shapes the words that come out of my mouth too, which ultimately is going to be how I see the world. So it seems like, to me, actions are like the precursor to what transpires in my life. So if I do things that are self-loving, if I do things that are self-building, whatever, that are aligned with the person that deep down in my heart I know who I really want to be, then those actions will reinforce something in my brain, which gives me a different perspective, an uplifting feeling about myself, a belief in myself, a trust in myself, a confidence in myself, so that I can feed off that and build and move in the direction that I want to become.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the thing that really resonated with me, or what seems interesting to me, and I don't know, I kind of want to jump into not a different topic, but a different subtopic of this, because it's really intriguing to me, unless you have more to say about where we're at in this conversation. But the unconscious self-sabotage, that's fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it feels like, well, go ahead. Look like you wanted
Well, one of the things that you talked about was trust, and I know that, and and probably everybody that's listening knows already that when we do things that sabotage ourselves, that we ultimately lose trust, and it not only affects us personally, it affects other people and their what's the word I'm looking for, in their experience of us. So, having the confidence, knowing that if I'm going to stay on track, that what I'm really building is self-trust and showing other people that they can depend. That's the word, depend on me, dependability, which is what I ideally want, because I don't want people walking around with this conversation in their head saying, yeah, Domenic, he's such a, whatever. I can't depend on him, and that's not the kind of human being that I want to be. So, I mean, I love the topic because it is, we're exploring the roots of what really go on, and and the conscious side is one thing that we do, and I think that that's because of when we do something consciously to trip ourselves up, it's because at some level there's something that's unconscious going on. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it.
right. Yes.
Does that
Yeah.
makes
Oh, yeah. And then here's the next level, right? So I'm sure you've had this experience where you're like unconscious of a thing, right? And then you do it, and then you don't even, at first you're not even aware that you're self-sabotaging yourself. And then if you're lucky enough or blessed enough, you have somebody or something reflect back to you, hey Domenic, or hey Greg, what you're doing is actually self-sabotage. You're hurting yourself and you're hurting your people around you. And so then at some level now I've become conscious of it, even though it was unconscious. And then I say let's say I'm in a partnership with somebody, a romantic partnership, and then I say, I'm never going to do that again. And then I find myself in that same exact spot where I have the opportunity, right? And then like those feelings come in. And then even though I said I was never going to do it again, and I became aware that it was self-sabotage, in that moment, something takes me over that I do it again. Have you had that experience?
absolutely, of course.
It's so funny. So, and I do think that like it's such a blessing to have, like there has to be that moment like, I think I've talked about this before, and where, like, when I feel that electricity, somebody like pulling my chain, or I'm like, somebody triggers me, and then all of a sudden I get in this like auto response mode, and I'm going through this. I've been going through this in the last 24 or 48 hours with the person living in my home, where I have this tendency sometimes where when somebody gets close to a part of me that I don't want them to see, then I can just go in like aggressive mode, where I can just like, not like attack where I'm like angry, like hurtful or something like that, but where I can just like, nope, you're too close. So let me just turn this all on you, and let me point out all the things that da 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 da, and then I get to like, and then I'm blessed with someone who's reflecting that back in me, and then I can like look and say, like, see, like I'm in this like real vulnerable turning point now, where I'm like starting to see it, like, wow, that's a thing I do. When somebody's like, I'm so insecure that when somebody sees something in me that like I don't like, I will just like turn it around and create this distraction of putting it on the other person, so that I don't have to look at it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so how do I, like, get in there and shift this thing that has been a reoccurring thing for me for maybe, gosh, I don't know, 20, 30 years of my life, 25 years of my life. And now it's like, oh, wow, I've been doing this. Shifting that energy, like becoming conscious of it, but then not allowing that moment to like take me over. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what you're saying is, how do we get back to go with the whole thing? And so,
Monopoly term, is that what you mean?
yeah, kind of, like, so we're continuing, when we continue to do this sabotage stuff, right? And we the consequences kick in, and then we're not feeling great about ourselves, and then we're in a relationship with someone, and we begin to do the daily living stuff, and they do something that we don't particularly like the way that they do it. We want them to do it our way, and it's like, those are like the little things that are the to me, it's like the things that, it's not about so much that I don't like what they're doing. It's that the closer that I get to someone, the more worried that I'm going to get found out.
Mm-hmm.
And so what starts the arguments is not the thing that they're doing or not doing that I don't like. It's that the closer that we get in our relationship, to be open and honest, which is, like, I would say that, well, one of the values that I have is to be open and honest. Well, but I've got like 4,000 things that I'm fucking hiding in this closet over here. And if I reveal them, they probably aren't going to like me. So, how do we get back to this place of go, like, to clean the slate, to then erase all the chalkboard of the stuff that I'm hiding.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
and
Yeah.
then and then go from there, start over, kind of a thing. How do we get there? What are some of those tools that are available that we could actually do, that in my experience and in my observation, that most people would never do, because then they would have to admit, well, yeah, remember that time I said I wasn't going to, and I did anyway.
There's,
They're not going to go there, but that's the thing that's holding them back.
yeah. Well, I think I think I have a couple ideas, a couple thoughts. I think it's a great thought, to analyze the tools, because that's how we get out of it, right? Like, we need tools, we need something help us. And for me, a couple things come to mind. Number one, telling the truth, being willing to name it, not hide it anymore, and accept the consequences of telling the truth. And the reality is that sometimes we do things in our life. I've done things in my life where if somebody knew the truth of what I did, it might hurt the relationship. It might even cost me a relationship. And I think that if I don't tell the truth, like let's just like in a scenario where if I tell somebody the truth, I know it's going to cost me the relationship. Let's just say that's a given. I still believe it's worth telling the truth, knowing it's going to cost me the relationship. The reason why I believe that is because I think that number one, it's going to be an inauthentic relationship if I'm not honest with that person. So it's not really a relationship to begin with. It's this fake thing that exists. Number two, so then I'm going to persist. I'm going to persist in that kind of crappy relationship for the rest of my life. But the bigger consequence to me is that I'm not creating the possibility of having an authentic relationship. So I would much rather in the long term, thinking about what is it like, where do I want to be 5 years from now in my life? So let me clean up this relationship now. Okay, it cost me the relationship. That sucks. I hate that it cost me the relationship. And now I'm at go, right? So now my next relationship, at least I've created the possibility of authenticity. So I think that's one thing. Another thing that comes to mind, and it's similar, is these 3 words that are sometimes the hardest words to say. I am sorry. Like taking accountability, right? Which is similar to telling the truth. And giving up this need to be right. I think those are a couple tools that I've used, and it's hard. It's hard sometimes where I know I'm right. I know I'm right. And then it's like, oh wait, no, I'm actually sabotaging myself, and I'm sabotaging this relationship. Let me let go of being right. I'm sorry. That can go a long way to get back to go.
Definitely. One of the things that we also is an option is that we don't always have to lose the relationship. I think my relationship with my wife is a relationship that if I said to her, sweetheart, I've got 4,000 things I need to clean up, that she would probably sit there and listen to me, so that she'd be supporting me in getting back to go. And she wouldn't, she might be like, what? You did that with number 26, or she would just, sit there and just be, totally accepting and listening and say, when I'm done, you feel better? Oh, so much better.
Yeah.
And I didn't get killed.
Right.
That would be a more ideal scenario relationship where, the 2 people in the relationship could be at this level of vulnerability where we know that if we did something that wasn't cool, or we self-sabotage or whatever you want to call it, that we're not going to get killed, and they're going to say, no, we're done.
Yeah.
And of course, the level of the severity of the, the action, the deed, whatever, definitely it will play a role.
Right. Yeah, it will.
So, and then it leads to me, if I'm in a relationship like that, and I think that I am in a relationship, if I had some stuff that I needed to clean up, Diane would just probably laugh at me and say, how long you been holding on to that, you idiot? and the thing though is that it gets me to a place of freedom, so that I don't have to carry that load of crap on my back or in my brain, and
Mhm.
I could get back to this go, which is like go equals freedom, the freedom to just like be myself again without having this, wheelbarrow full of crap.
Mhm. Yeah, right. Eliminates pretense and all this acting and faking and getting back to that authentic self. Yeah, my example was an extreme version. I think yours is in the more ideal realm of creating. And I think that's an interesting thing. Like the people that I choose to spend time with in my life now would be much more open to receiving that kind of information than maybe the people I was hanging out with 20 years ago. I've attracted people who have a space for compassion. And I think there's something really interesting about, I've heard this before, and I think it's really true, that's really one of the most, as you talk, I like your version of talking about getting back to go, or like getting back to that space of authenticity, feeling that freedom, that lightness, that free spirit, whatever. Um, that somebody lending an empathetic ear, a compassionate ear, a non-judgmental ear, just a space to receive without like holding it against me, can really enable growth and healing in somebody, in myself. And um, it's something that I strive to be for other people. It's like first of all, I've done all the things. So like there's nothing you can say or I'm going to be like, what? There might be a couple things, right? But in the general, like in terms of a normal human relationship with people, like there's very, very little that somebody can say where I'm just going to be like, you're a bad person. And I'm going to hold that against them forever. Um, Opening that space for somebody to just like allow them to say it, and then they don't feel judged, right? Because like for me, I know the reason why I'm not sharing that stuff, the reason why I'm hanging on to it so much is because not only am I judging myself, but I think everyone else is going to judge me if they know about it. And so when somebody holds that space for me where it's like, oh, like you said, Diane would laugh at it, right? Like that is such a loving place to be. That's such a loving energy that she's providing where it's like, you're totally safe just the way you are, Dominic. I love you. Like, that's great. Like, bring it on. Like, I'm so glad you let that go so that now you can get back to being amazing. And you're my husband and I want you to be amazing. So thank you for like letting it go. And you're great, you know?
Hmm. Well, I mean, so like, I'm sure that you can relate to this, and I'm sure that the people who are watching can relate to this. So then, there's somebody at certain times they get grumpy. Things aren't working, so they get grumpy. And I think that that's really what's really going on underneath the hood is all these sabotage events, actions, lies. Did you eat that? No, of course not. Did you, whatever. And so we, when people become grumpy, and it's certainly true for me, is that, I think that I'm grumpy because I don't feel clean underneath and I need to wash my engine, so to speak, and I think like, so if Diane came up to me and said, I got to have a confession, and so I mean, I would be like all ears. So just tell me, because what I want for her is to have the freedom to be, happy, feeling giddy, feeling blissful, unrestricted, you know, um, you name it, instead of being this grumpy kind of a thing and having these, little nitpicky arguments. I think the nitpicky arguments goes back to that, we accumulate these sabotaging things that create that. So, I mean, I think that the key there is, how can we open up the space in our relationships to clean it up? I mean, I wish that some people would come to me and say, you know, Domenic or Dad or whatever, I have some things that I need to clean up with you. And then I'd be like, absolutely, of course, you know. And I've had that experience. I mean, I had one a little over a year ago with an old mentor of mine, and we went and had dinner, and we talked and cleaned up the space. And he and his wife, they were all ears. So that's was in the best interest of me. That's a very giving thing and place or space to provide for other people so that they can feel that freedom again.
And it takes courage. It takes courage to do that, because it's so much easier to just hang on to it.
Most definitely. Absolutely. There was some other stuff in this chat GPT that I wanted to talk about. It says causes of self-sabotage. And I don't know if these are all true. I'll just read a couple of them because they do make a little bit of sense. The origin of self-sabotage can be multifaceted and include fear of failure, fear of success, imposter syndrome. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about, right? If we got all this stuff in our, that we've done, we're being an imposter, right? If we're not clean. Unresolved trauma, perfectionism, we could unpack all that stuff. Manifestations of self-sabotage. Common behaviors associated with self-sabotaging behaviors include procrastination, delaying tasks, right? So we get what people say lazy. I don't quite agree with that. I don't think that people are innately lazy. I think that we get bogged down by our stuff, and then we're not motivated.
Or what if we're just too comfortable?
There you go.
We settle for comfort, so then we don't have any reason. Like if I'm surviving in the forest, there's no opportunity to be lazy.
Exactly. Negative self-talk.
I touched on that.
I'm a piece of shit.
I don't deserve it.
I don't deserve it.
I'm not good enough.
Absolutely not good enough. And watch, I'm going to do it again and prove it to myself.
Yep, exactly. See, I told you weren't good enough.
That's right.
I told you were going to blow that relationship. I told you that you were going to drink again. I told you that, exactly. On and on and on.
Exactly.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
So then that's on the unconscious side of the fence, right? Or the conscious side? Which one is that? We're doing it.
Probably unconscious, likely unconscious. I don't know. Somewhere in between, maybe.
Well, but it doesn't matter.
I love what you said about even if it's conscious, at some level it's unconscious, because if I knew better, I'd never say that. I would never actually put myself in that position to think that about myself, because at its core, it's not true, in my opinion. We have this unlimited possibility that we are human beings, that we can expand and expand and expand.
True. We are a possibility. That's all we are. I've heard that many, many times. Here's another good one. Overcommitment, taking on too many responsibilities. Oh, sure, I'll help you with that. No problem. I'll get that done. Then we get so what's the word I'm looking for? So our windshield is so dirty, we can't see through it,
Mm-hmm.
And so we say that we're going to get all this stuff done. And what do we end up doing? Making to-do lists. And then it's like 5 weeks later, I made that to-do list. Maybe I should go and look at it.
Yeah, maybe do a couple things on them.
Yeah, right. Oh, here we go. Avoidance. We avoid people. We avoid looking in the mirror. That's a big one. That's one of the exercises that I always recommend when I was doing my training. Say, go do the mirror exercise, and people are like, "Well, you look in the mirror, right?" I would be talking to them. You look in the mirror every day. In the morning, in the evening, whatever. You're looking in the mirror. You're always like checking yourself to look in the mirror, right? So what about just like looking into your eyes and say, "Okay, okay, Dominic, what's the deal?"
Honest check-in.
Right. I don't think people would do that. I mean, I haven't done that for a long time. Hang on, I'll be right back.
Yeah. Yeah. I find myself doing that from time to time. I find myself giving myself little pep talks in the mirror sometimes when I need it.
It works.
Well, it does work. Another tool, I'm not diverting from what you're saying, but I think that it's like another way we can avoid these self-sabotage, these methods of self-sabotaging ourselves. And it resonates because I was talking with a really good friend, my friend slash mentor of mine tonight, and talking about like how to avoid self-sabotage. And that is keeping the end in mind. Stephen Covey talks about this, I think, in the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's like, when I know what I want, when I know what I really, really want, and it's crystal clear, then I'll be so much less willing to sabotage myself along the way because I know that's what I really want. Versus when I don't have a vision, then I'm so much more inclined to be hijacked by my emotional state. And I take this short-term route, this short-term gratifying, like, I need this now because it just feels like I need it now. And it might come from anger, it might come from resentment, it might come from all these different places versus, and this long-term thing where it's like, okay, well, that's what I really want. So I'm willing to hold myself back. I'm willing to discipline myself in this moment so that I don't sabotage myself because what I really want is that. And it's worth it.
I totally agree 100%. It's like setting our framework, our purpose, our strategy, our vision, like that, and then having the big goal in mind makes a big difference. However, before that, the steps is to get clean in the first place and then practice being clean for an extended period of time, and then begin to work on the vision and the purpose and the values and the strategy. Because if I build a house on a very weak foundation, as an analogy, and the wind blows too hard, or I become challenged, the inner strength that we build when we are, maintaining a certain level of keeping our word, and I mean that's really what it's about, is keeping our word in the end. If I say I'm going to do something or not do something, and when I actually do that or not do that, I build this foundation that really is unbreakable, and then the trust that I build in myself becomes so strong that when I come up against a challenging decision, like eating chocolate Christmas Eve because it's in the bowl at my sister-in-law's house. And then when I don't do it, I mean, unless I give myself a reprieve, but if I don't give myself a reprieve and I do it, then it's like I back down those stairs and have to rebuild. So, I mean, I think that you're right on the money.
I have this image of like a grappling hook. Like I throw my grappling hook outward towards what I want, and then I latch into it. And then along the way, when something comes up, like I get stuck in a swamp or something or quicksand, then it's like I have this thing that I'm holding myself onto to carry myself through that crap. But if I don't have this long-term vision, then I'll just sink in the quicksand because I got nothing to hold on to. I got nothing to pull me through it.
Yeah. And understanding the consequences. And if we continue to, what do they say? If you don't allow the lesson to sink in, I don't know how it goes. We just keep getting the same thing, the same challenge over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Like we have to get through that and then push through. So like the chocolate example that I just gave is a real challenge for me. And that's why I've been smart enough to give myself reprieve so I don't come up against that.
Mm-hmm.
So but when I don't have a reprieve to not eat chocolate, when I'm doing that or drinking alcohol, I'm on a no drinking thing right now. I'm on a no sweets thing right now. I'm at a 30-minute exercise minimum a day, like that. I know you're on agreements too. And those are self-induced, and when I don't resist that temptation to eat that piece of chocolate, and I don't remember that the consequences are coming no matter what. And as soon as I put that in my mouth,
It's over.
It's over. Game over.
And the voice comes in immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it looks so good. I want that chocolate. It's okay. This one time it's fine. And then you
have another one. Have two, have three, have four.
you already blew it. Eat the whole bowl.
Eat the whole bowl. Why not? Yeah. So I mean, it's an interesting topic. I think that we should have a part 2 on this one because there's so many different things we could talk about, and there's so many things that tie into it. Like word.
There's so many things we could deep dive into. I'd love to go into like the unconscious things of like I'm into how parental relationships and how those manifest in our image of ourselves and these unconscious behaviors that show up. I think that's a massive thing that can show up that it's a bit of a buzz thing to talk about nowadays, but I think it is interesting because I think it really does shape our world. Did I get attention from my dad? Did I not get attention from my dad? How do those things play out? Did I get too much attention? Was he verbally abusive? Was he absent? These are things that at a deep-seated level sort of manifest in different ways as adults.
Yep, you're right. And I have my own thoughts about all that stuff too. It's like, if I'm a weak-minded person, I could easily go down the path of that my father did it to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a strong-minded person. I could, go down the other path, which is, how can I take responsibility for that? Did I, did I stay in contact with him? Did I overthink it? There's all kinds of stuff that are going on there. But I think that we could pick up there on the next podcast.
Sounds like a plan. We could do that.
Relationships. I mean, we're both parents and we both have parents. So, indeed. What is Ginger saying? Hi, Ginger. There it is. Self-defense, esteem, improve, important, knowing the 3 dramas. Oh, she's our Buddhist viewer. Mind, spirit, body, self-sabotage, to go to war with self. Yeah.
Yep.
It's interesting. Yeah. So, time for me to go.
All right.
And we'll talk offline.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. See you next week.
Thank you all. We'll see you soon. Remember to stay inspired, have fun, and be playful. That's my mantra for the year.
It's a good one.
Be playful. Okay, man. Take care.
You too.
Talk soon. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye for now. There we go.